All right, today we're diving into AMD's 2025 earnings. But look, this is way more than just a numbers breakdown. We're talking about a year that was absolutely pivotal, a year that saw AMD completely rewrite its own story and its place in the entire tech universe.
So here's our core thesis, the big idea for today. 2025 wasn't just about impressive growth for AMD. Nope, it was the year of a massive strategic shift. The year they transformed from a company that just sells you parts into one that designs and sells the entire system.
And this isn't just some theory we cooked up. The proof is right there in the financial results. And the first piece of evidence? A staggering $34.6 billion in full-year revenue. That's a 34% jump, year over year. Growth on that scale tells you something fundamental is changing under the hood.
So yeah, let's start with those financials, because they really do set the stage for this whole story. This was a year of absolute milestones, where the numbers themselves tell you there was a deep, structural shift in the business.
The Q4 performance is especially telling. I mean, just look at that jump. For the very first time in its history, AMD didn't just cross, it shattered the $10 billion mark in a single quarter. This wasn't just some steady climb, it was a rocket launch, signaling some serious momentum.
And here, right here, is where it gets really interesting. Don't just look at the top-line revenue. Focus on that middle line, net profit. We're talking a 164% increase. You don't get that just by selling more stuff. You get that by selling more valuable stuff. This points to a huge improvement in profitability, a real shift toward higher-margin products. And that's absolutely key to our story today.
So the big question is, where did all this high-quality growth actually come from? Well, the answer couldn't be clearer. The data center. This segment wasn't just part of AMD's success, it was the main engine, the absolute powerhouse fueling its expansion and its strategic pivot right into the heart of the AI era.
And this chart illustrates the new reality at AMD perfectly. The data center business is now responsible for almost half, 48% of the company's total revenue. Think about that. It's become the undeniable center of gravity for the entire company, pulling everything into its new, much more ambitious orbit.
And if we dive even deeper into the data center's fourth quarter, the numbers are just, well, they're stunning. An operating margin of 32.6%. That kind of incredible profitability is what happens when you have a perfect storm. You've got the continued dominance of their EPYC server CPUs, the brains of the data center, and you combine that with the meteoric rise of their Instinct AI accelerators, which are just tailor-made for these new AI workloads.
So how'd they pull this off? It was a powerful two-pronged attack. First, their Instinct AI GPUs got adopted by pretty much all of the world's top AI players, with sales now on par with their legendary EPYC CPU business. And crucially, their Roxas M7 software is making it easier and easier for developers to move away from NVIDIA's walled garden, CUDA, all while their APYC CPUs just keep expanding their footprint across the cloud.
But you know, selling powerful chips is really only half the story. The truly game-changing move, the strategic masterstroke of 2025, was this pivot towards selling entire systems. This is where AMD really began its transformation.
And they did it with absolute surgical precision. First, they bought ZT Systems, not for its factories, but for its brainpower. Then, they immediately sold off the low-margin manufacturing part, but, and this is the genius move, they kept the core team of over 1,000 systems engineers. This single move gave them world-class system design expertise overnight, and it let them launch Helios, a full-rack AI solution ready to go head-to-head with the best in the business.
So the bottom line is this. AMD can now sell a complete, integrated, fully optimized solution. They're no longer just selling the ingredients to the cloud giants, they're providing the entire recipe. And that move elevated them from just being a component supplier to being a true architecture standard setter in this AI arms race.
Now, a strategic shift this big obviously doesn't happen in a vacuum. It fundamentally changed the entire competitive landscape, and it allowed AMD to leapfrog its rivals on two totally different fronts. And right here, this is the historic moment. In the third quarter of 2025, for the first time ever, AMD's data center revenue actually eclipsed Intel's. This wasn't just a good quarter for them. It was a symbolic changing of the guard, signaling a massive power shift right in the heart of the computing market.
And the reason for this shift becomes crystal clear when you compare their business models. You have Intel, which is weighed down by the massive costs of running its own factories, leading to negative profit margins. And then you have AMD with its capital-efficient fabless model.
They design the chips, but they let partners do the manufacturing, and that gives them incredible financial flexibility and, well, much higher profitability.
Now, if we look at how the market is valuing these companies, you can see the story playing out in real time. Just notice AMD's revenue growth, 34%, absolutely dwarfing Intel's negative growth. Now, of course, NVIDIA is kind of in a league of its own, but the market is clearly rewarding AMD's high-growth, capital-efficient strategy, positioning it as a really dynamic player that's challenging the old guard.
So, where does all this lead? What does the future actually look like for this new version of AMD? Well, the blueprint is clear. Their future is all about becoming a true systems integrator.
And the path forward in 2026 is built on some very concrete pillars. First, you've got the large-scale rollout of their Helios rack-scale systems. That's going to dramatically increase the value they can capture from every single customer. Second, they're going to push beyond the cloud into enterprise data centers. And third, you've got new generations of CPUs and GPUs coming down the pike to keep the product pipeline fresh and super competitive.
Ultimately, what this all means is that we have to completely reevaluate how we value AMD. The company's future worth isn't just about selling silicon anymore. It's about capturing the value of the entire data center system, hardware, software, the works, plus the explosive growth we're seeing in AI. It's just a much larger, more integrated equation now.
And that brings us to our final thought. After a year of record-breaking financials, historic market share gains, and a truly brilliant strategic pivot, the question we're all left with is this. Was 2025's incredible performance the climax of AMD's story, or was it just the prelude to a much, much grander narrative?